Thank you for watching. I am your host, Alistair. Okay, let's start with the basics. So the home was listed for $190,000, but we made an offer of $160,000. It was accepted. $40,000 down. We have a 15-year mortgage, so $120,000 loan at 2.5% interest. That is amazing. We bought it in 2021. That interest rate, you're never going to find it, especially now. The property was purchased in 2021, so COVID was happening, but also the eviction moratorium was in effect. I'm going to come back to that because the eviction moratorium was a huge damper when it comes to the performance of this property. To remind you what the eviction moratorium was, during the pandemic, at the height of the pandemic, all evictions related to non-payment of rent had stopped. Now, the property was purchased before we had a tenant in there, but to give you an idea of the climate, the political climate during the purchase was that if you got a bad tenant in there that decided not to pay, you had no legal remedy in relation to non-payment of rent. Let's go back into the numbers. The closing costs, purchase of the property, including closing costs, was the total of $51,982. So once we acquired the property, we had to get it ready for renting. It took us about a month to get the property rental ready. So we purchased it in January. The whole February was when we got the property ready for renting, and we got our first tenant in there in March. So let's go into what it cost us to get the property ready. It cost us a total of $9,660.26. What was including in that? So there was home inspection, the LLC incorporation, title company, the re-inspection, painting, licensing, cleaning, rental registration, check on the plumbing, last minute repairs, all of that included to make it so when you have a tenant walk in there, the property is as pristine as possible. It cost us $9,660.26. So when I did comps for the property, I saw and I noticed that the typical places were being rented between $1,300 and $1,400. But when I looked at the pictures, and this is a tip I can give you guys, when you do comps, make sure you look at the quality inside the pictures, the quality in relation to the value, because that matters. And when I looked at the pictures, everything was really dated. It was really dirty. It wasn't good quality at all. So between $1,300 and $1,400 with really poor quality, I was like, you know what? I can demand more from the market if I am exigent with the quality of my product. So first conclusion here, from the buying of the house, the closing cost, and to get the property rental ready, we spent a total of $61,642.26. The mortgage of the property is $1,098.19. The mortgage, of course, includes insurance, taxes, etc., etc., etc. Now, the rental price that I'm placing on the property, $1,450. Now, I need to give you a quick disclaimer. Today's date, the year today is 2023, and this scenario I'm explaining to you happened in 2021, right? So it's a few years back, but I'm going to spoil it for you. It doesn't go very well. I'll get to that later on. So what does that mean for my profit margin? Because it is an investment and I needed to make money, okay? So we go to, so that gives us a monthly cash flow of $351.81 or $4,221.72. Now let's get to the bad part. Like I mentioned to you earlier, these are numbers for 2021, and unfortunately we got a tenant in there in March, and the tenant stopped paying rent in June. Now, I was very well aware of the eviction moratorium when we purchased the property for the purpose of renting it. She did not have a year lease. She had a monthly lease because the eviction moratorium only entertained cases that is not related to non-payment of rent. Unfortunately for us, The state closed all courts in June, and they only reopened the following year due to COVID lockdown. And that is why she was able to stay in the house pretty much for the rest of the year rent-free. So thankfully, we were able to get her evicted the following year, January 26th of 2022. To remind you, she stopped paying rent in June 10th, 2021. Okay, I still had to pay the utilities and I still had to pay the mortgage. And it was a complete disaster. But let me give you what the losses were. And then we're going to subtract that from the numbers of 2021. So you can see how this property suffered. Okay, like I told you, the rent was $1,450. She paid in March, April, May, June, 4. That's $5,800. And then she stopped paying rent. There was a 1 month security deposit, so which obviously I'll take that. So we're gonna add plus an extra $1,450. So it comes out to a total of the money I kept from her to $7,250. All right, let's go through the losses. Okay, it cost us to get her out of the property and get the property back in rental order because she damaged the property. It cost us a total of roughly $20,000. All right, so that's a total loss of $12,750. So for the year of 2021, the property bled $12,750. That includes the legal fees required to actually get her out. It was a complete disaster. I remember saying to myself, like, oh my God, I got a bad tenant in there and it cost me so much money because I had no legal recourse to get her out of my property. She lived rent-free and it was a complete nightmare. So when we finally got her out, I was ready to sell the property and be done with Baltimore because of these new legal regulations that came in and made it impossible to do business accurately. So what I did is I sat down, I talked to my accountant and I talked to my lawyers and I was like, I'll get back to you guys in a little bit and let you know what I want to do next. I came back to my computer and I looked at the data, and what I saw was, first of all, this is the moment where the market, the real estate market, went absolutely crazy. And so I went and I saw the value of this property and I was absolutely blown away. So I paid $160,000 for the property. And when I went and I saw how much equity it gained, it is now worth $210,000. I was absolutely blown away by the amount of equity I've gained in less than a year. And I remember saying to myself, like, what the hell is that? What is going on? This cannot be right. And so what I did is I did the comps again and I went to see, all right, fine, the equity went up. What is the value of the rent? And so I went and I did comps and it went up. It used to be between $1,300 and $1,400. Now it was at between $1,500 and $1,700. It was insane. And I remember saying to myself, okay, Alistair, okay, let's think this through. I was like, I just gained $50,000. Yes, it's in equity, it's not in cash, but that's not something to, that's something. And then I also gained $400 extra in terms of the value of my rental. And then I was like, all right, let's give this another shot. And I'm going to be a little smarter when it comes to my lease agreement and the tenant I'm going to get. The reason why I chose this property to showcase to you is because this particular property actually experienced the entire gambit of a real estate investor's nightmare. And I think it's essential for everybody to really see the real numbers, what it's like to have the headaches, etc., etc. because it's very simple to have this idea. Oh, I'm going to buy a rental property. I'm going to put the tenant in there and it's going to make me money. It doesn't work like that. And oh my God, I just buy this investment and just let it be passive. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing as passive income. If someone tries to sell you anything other than hard work, run away from them. They're scamming you. Thank you so much for giving me your attention. You know, there's something very exposing and vulnerable when I sit here and talk about those numbers, but I do think it's an important message to show people, because there's this big misconception that investing, even if it's stocks, that it's just passive. It's not. There's still a lot of active work that needs to be done. And I think showcasing the negative and the burnout and the expenses and how expensive things are, I think it will educate a lot of the public who think investors are just made of money and it's just easy, and it's not. It's not. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Look, don't forget to press the like, subscribe if you haven't done so. It really helps the algorithm a ton. It helps the channel. So thank you again for your support. And part 2 of this little vlog is I'm going to tell you what the numbers were for the year of 2022. But 2021 was a complete loss. This property bled money like there's no tomorrow. It was so depressing. And I had no legal recourse. I couldn't even defend myself from this tenant who took advantage. It took advantage of pretty much living for free and destroying my property. So it cost us a lot of money, $20,000 in damages, all in all. But thank God for the market to change and shift, and it gave me a second breath, a second win to try this again and see if I can recuperate the money I lost for 2021, which essentially that's what I did, right? Anyway, thank you a ton. I am your host, Alistair.